listeners, and I'm going to just mention again, myself, Deb, Katie are reviewing some of the sessions and abstracts or summary posters that we have observed while attending the American College of Rheumatology ACR Convergence 2021. And our focus here today is on psoriatic arthritis, JIA. But again, we're talking a lot about how research works, so it is relevant to many of you out there. One of the things I wanted to mention is there was, with as far as psoriatic arthritis, this has just been one of those hot diseases. There's so many therapies that are in research right now, which is a great news. One of the statements I wrote down, theme emerging. We like to do that when we see things happening over and over. This was a statement from one of the session reviews that we saw. While this is a very welcome development in a disease which has had less treatment options compared to rheumatoid arthritis, it leaves us with a difficult conundrum: which agent to choose for the individual patient. And I pulled that out specifically because, you know, it may sound like a broken record, but our organization has been knee deep in preparing for precision medicine since about 2017. And, you know, we're here in 2021 right now because we recognize through our own discussions, our own conversations with others living with these diseases, and our own research that we've done internally, that we are so individualized, and there are all of these big, you know, unsolved questions. How do you find the right treatment for them? Poor Deb's gone through, you know, all of them. And, you know, Katie, I don't know how many you've been through, and I'm on, you know, I think luckily only my third biologic. But, you know, I would have still been on the other one had I not developed Stevens-Johnson syndrome and it messed up my whole my whole system, and everything stopped working. But anyway, I digress. So the point is that we're excited about all of these new therapies, but even more exciting is the different targets. So we mention this a lot at our organization. We really try to teach people living with the diseases in a very generic, broad way, without getting too technical, without getting into the direct science and anatomy. We don't need to get in. You just need to know the concept of what the science is and what's happening. And essentially, if you take biologics, you've taken treatments, you've heard terms probably like TNF inhibitor or JAK, which is a lot of those, the newer pill forms, or you know, you hear TNF inhibitors. Those were sort of the original ones, like your Enbrel, your Humira, Cimzia. You know, that means that they're targeted, they're inhibiting actually different parts of our bodies, different parts of our pathways, the ways that you know, our cells work, or our body is equipped, and it's blocking things. And when it blocks these mechanisms, then theoretically our immune system is triggered to respond. And there has been research before it gets into humans that by inhibiting these things or not inhibiting them, whichever way you're looking at it, it triggers a response enough to move into trials to see if this is going to slow down progression, symptoms, etc. And as I mentioned, this JAK or JAK inhibitors is more of a recent medication. It's targeting this pathway, and the JAK pathway consists of JAK1, JAK2, JAK3, which again, we don't need to go into all of the big science, but those are three, but then there's a fourth, and that is, and I didn't look up how to phonetically say this.
I actually can. My organic chemistry and biochemistry will, it's tyrosine kinase.
I was going to do it right. Yes. I was going to say tyrosine.
Yes,
okay.
That's exactly
kinase
right.
2. Okay. And so that is the, which is kind of funny because it's, why isn't it JAK4? But that's what it is. And so the reason I'm just bringing it up is that there were a couple trials that they talked about specifically inhibiting and they're called, I don't know if they say tyke, like TYK2.
Yeah.
Like you say Jack, so if I'm butchering that, I'm sorry.
I'm guessing that would be it.
It sounds right to me to say type
Yeah.
2. So there were some studies. There was one study that was a type 2 JAK inhibitor, and the other one was just a type 2 inhibitor. And the real takeaway that I just wanted to mention, these different targets. So again, we're recognizing a need for different subgroups, different responses to treatments, what's going to work and what's not. And I stress that because as we move forward, more and more patients are going to either be needed for clinical trials like this, especially if you are refractory, meaning you're not responding well to certain diseases. If you would meet inclusion criteria, it's something you would need to talk to your rheumatologist about, but also post-market. So getting signed up with organizations like ours that has our own database now, thanks to shout out Forward National Database for Rheumatic Diseases, or now just called Forward Databank. And because of them, we are able to conduct our own research into understanding this. So when we say, okay, maybe you're not going to be in a clinical trial, and many of us can't be, we can't even meet the inclusion criteria. Guess what? You can still help us figure out how these treatments are working and what is these targets and how you're responding, because you can talk about it while you're on the treatment. That's called post-market research, post-market surveillance. So we work with Forward on that too. So just know that your voice and your participation, whether it's early before the treatment hits the office and you get on it, or after, is still very valuable. So one of the things that was pretty fascinating about the type 2, which I'm calling it again, I'm going to be so embarrassed if I go back one day. It's just totally not it, but it seems like that's what it should be called, is that it was measuring biomarker changes. So very specifically, it says it is a novel oral drug that is inhibiting this type 2. So it's a unique mechanism of action, and it's demonstrating that it's effective in patients with psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. And it also is starting to show, and we're going to say starting to show, because I don't even know what level of trials that these are in, but there is some indication that they could have less, where's this at? I lost my place. Less adverse effects than straight up JAK inhibitors. And we're not, again, saying, oh my gosh, that's going to be better if I'm on a JAK inhibitor. Katie, I know, is on one right now and loves it. So I don't want anyone to ever, look, oh, well, if it has less adverse reactions, that adverse reactions are very rare, first of all. And second of all, you can only make that choice between you and your doctor and what works for your body. So, we don't want to in any way, shape, or form suggest that, you take this research that we're presenting to you at straight face value, that this is the right one for you to jump on the bandwagon. The point here is to let you know that there are options that are coming out. There is work that you can do to help yourself with finding the right treatment and to advance research. So that is the important takeaway here. And then just other studies into enthesitis in particular, and that to me, I think, is really important, because we have done some work, and shout out to Novartis. We have done some advisory work with them on JIA, and specifically also enthesitis related JIA, juvenile arthritis, or ERA, and enthesitis related arthritis. And the reason it really resonated with us is, as an organization, we always take on projects where there's missing gaps. If there's something we've identified that isn't necessarily being fully addressed elsewhere, or maybe we think there's a different route or a different way that may trigger change, we sort of migrate towards that. And we find those missing gaps through conversation with our fellow patients. So that's how we identify them. Patients know what's missing. So in saying that, we did start to recognize in both juvenile and adults, enthesitis is with the tendons. So that is different than the joints. So spondyloarthritis, spondy diseases typically are related, more commonly related to enthesitis, even though I know there have been studies in RA as well. But the important point that I think to bring up here is in juvenile in particular, if the joints are always the ones that are stressed, what does especially a child who can't really differentiate between a tendon and a joint,
Right.
That's a big deal. And so one of the things at our organization that we really want to start focusing a lot more and moving into the next coming years, in addition to differentiating all arthritis types, is also the differentiation of subgroups. And that includes when, helping to educate all people who have the enthesitis to be able to communicate that with their physicians. I know that just in the work that I've been doing with talking to JIA families and kids is they often get dismissed as, which a lot of JIA do, is the growing pains, but they all tend to be hypermobile. And so they'll say, oh, that whole double jointed thing comes in. And they often are referred to a physical therapist well before like a rheumatologist. And so that physical therapy becomes such an ingrained thing with them as well. And so there are different treatment paths that happen, whether between the joints and the enthesitis. So it's just something I wanted to throw out there that we all, I think, as a community need to kind of keep our ears open on this, because there's the fact that we're focusing on domains and treatments and researchers looking at the different responses, that's a different measurement than joints. So knowing that there's treatments out there that they're measuring the degree of enthesitis, that's different. It's just like saying measuring fatigue. So that's very promising news, and why I wanted to specifically bring that up. So I feel like I've talked a lot today.
No, that's really good. I mean, that's really great information. These are all learning moments for our community of things that they may not have known. And again, just even reiterating, those biomarkers are exactly what, precision medicine is, that we stand behind, and just love that they're digging deeper into all of these biomarkers and doing more research.